Hi there and welcome to your practical on making a mesocosm. So here I'm going to demonstrate some of the practicalities of constructing your mesocosm. So a mesocosm, first of all, is a self-sustaining environment. So this is a sealed environment, and in this space we find that matter cannot enter or leave. It is totally sealed, right? But the energy can enter. For example, sunlight. Sunlight can enter so that provides energy, light energy, for photosynthesis to occur for the plants that are within. So this example of a mesocosm here, it is not fully constructed, but it is just something I could use an example for you. So this would be an aquatic mesocosm. And inside here we have it is aquatic fresh water, not salt water. And I have some aquatic plants in here. And if you look closely, it might be difficult on the video, but there are also some aquatic snails in this mesocosm. So first things first, if you are constructing your mesocosm, you first need to think about the size of the container. So this one I would suggest might be the top end of a size, and I say that you can kind of judge it by my size versus the size of the container. But there are other container sizes that we can have. So for example, this is a little bit smaller, but I would suggest that we're not looking for a size that is anything less than 1 liter. But either way, whatever your size of your container is, what you choose and plan to put inside the container is all relative to the size of the container that you have in the first place. So nothing less than 1 liter I would advise. So in comparison, these two, you can see the one that I showed you initially is notably larger. I would say like just short of twice the size of the smaller one. And the smaller one is just over 1 liter in volume, that is, right? So once you have chosen your container, you want to decide whether you're doing an aquatic mesocosm. So that of course would be with water, and that is most likely to be fresh water, not salt water. Or alternatively, you can do a terrestrial mesocosm, in which case you're going to have soil inside and you're going to place plants. But again, the size of your plant has to be relative to the size of your container. So for example, right here, this plant is way too large for this container here. So you're going to have to make choices based on what is available. But a terrestrial mesocosm, that would be something with soil and somewhat like a regular plant we might be used to at home, but just size is going to be really important. So if we choose an aquatic mesocosm, some things to think about here. For example, the first thing is that if you are taking water from your taps, I have several taps in here, or your tap at home, you are going to need to treat that water. And this is just an example of a water treatment. This is really easy to purchase at any pet shop, because there are chemicals in tap water that just come out of your kitchen tap or whatnot, which is the reason why you wouldn't normally fill, for example, a fish tank with that tap water without treating it. So it's really important that you treat your water, you follow the instructions on the back of the bottle that you've purchased, and you treat your water prior to putting it in, right? The other thing is that with an aquatic mesocosm, with either one, when you choose your plants, you're going to want to make sure that your plants are able to take root. So with a terrestrial mesocosm, you would put soil at the bottom, but with an aquatic one, there is something that was missing from the prior one that I showed you here. And it's somewhat optional. As you can see, the plants are doing fine inside there, but they might benefit from some gravel at the bottom. So that is an optional situation for you, but it does make for something that allows the plants to take root inside of your container. And then when you put them in there, you essentially embed the roots into the gravel, right? Now, size of plants, I mentioned already with the terrestrial one, but the same goes for the aquatic one by way of size of plants. So I have some plants here. These were purchased previously, these are aquatic plants. So these were just purchased literally from a pet shop that sells fish tanks and fish and so on and so forth, and they typically will sell live plants too. So if I hold that one up against the containers, right, this one, if it of course were in water, it would float. That would be fine for this, even though you may seem that it is a little taller than this container. In terms of the mass of the plant, that would be fine. Right? And if I hold out my previous one again, you can see there's quite a lot by way of plants in there, and that is really important if you think about photosynthesis and the idea that it is those plants that are creating oxygen and removing the carbon dioxide either from the water in an aquatic mesocosm or from the air inside the container if it is a terrestrial mesocosm. So size of plants, super important. Okay, so moving forward from that, if we think about that we absolutely need to have our plants. They are the foundation for any ecosystem. They, like I said, are the ones that are conducting the photosynthesis in order to take out the carbon dioxide and produce that oxygen. Don't forget the plants also respire though. So when you are planning your mesocosm, you have to plan for both of these processes taking place. If, however, you also decide to add an organism, this is where, like also with the plants, we need to be really aware of ethics. And in particular for the IB, they have a set of IB ethics guidelines. So rule number one, absolutely no vertebrates. So no fish. In particular, we're not going to the pet shop to get a beautiful fish. That is against ethics guidelines, right? So the next thing that we need to consider is the size of our organism that we're putting inside of the mesocosm. So in this mesocosm, I have pointed out that there are aquatic snails inside. But the key point, and in fact, I see one aquatic snail is sitting right at the front for you to see right here. And the key point about these things with regards to snails, or if you should so choose, very, very tiny shrimp. So I would advise that we are not looking at anything larger than 1 centimeter in length. But more important to that is remember that these organisms grow. So particularly if you made a choice of, say, a very, very small shrimp, you want to ask how big does that shrimp grow? And in addition to that, how many are you choosing to put into your mesocosm? So with the two that I have provided here, the number that you put in there is going to be determined in part by the size of your container, but also it is relative to how many plants you put in there. Because remember that while the plants photosynthesize and respire, your organisms that go inside, that is the animals, not the plants, only respire. So the animals, the snails or the shrimp, they are only consuming oxygen and they're producing all of this carbon dioxide, which if it reaches high enough concentrations either in the water or in the air can become toxic. And that is when your mesocosm will no longer survive. So I would definitely err on the side of less rather than more. And typically when I've had students produce mesocosms in a container of this size or even of the smaller size, we have been putting in 1, maybe 2 snails. And the kinds of shrimp that we have used previously are little tiny ghost shrimp. And they're like, literally they're between 0.5 and 1 centimeters long. And they don't grow very big at all. They pretty much stay about the same size. So just to give you an idea, that's what we're thinking about is 1, maybe 2. Certainly not are we trying to stuff in as many as we could just fit, because that would be tons, right? So I hope all of these things have given you some guidance to put together your own mesocosm. I hope you're excited to create it and that you really have fun. Enjoy making your mesocosm.